is not very much. And at that point, then we're in a tough situation because we have to figure out about the services provided and the money that's coming in. So unless we get some alternative form of revenue, we can increase all. We're limited in what we can do through the millage rate.
I would just respond to that by saying that this is a crisis of our own making.
Not if we didn't make the limit.
It's my turn to speak now, Lee. This is a crisis of our own making. Well, I spoke and he responded, so I'm responding to him.
He's not speaking. He just had his light on.
Were you done? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
I just said I had my light on.
No, but I've got now my light on.
I thought you were finished.
I'm done. I'm done.
This is a crisis of our own making. We've been several years now doing this. If we had been adopting a more responsible revenue over the last several years, it wouldn't be as big of a problem as we have now. Because we've been putting this off for so long, it's all kind of falling on us at once. And I want to kind of remind everyone what the board did last year. The budget that we have right now, this year's budget that's about to end, was built using a little over $5 million in revenue sources that aren't recurring. Choices, reserves, and fund balance.
That is not right.
I have the floor. I'm speaking now. I put these numbers on the floor last year, and I'll put them on again this year. It's over $5 million. We used $2 million in fund balance. We used $3 million from choices, and we rated the reserves of the gas tax fund. That's over $5 million. So what that means is, just to continue the exact same budget this year, the one that we're about to adopt, the exact same budget, no changes, we need to start out by raising $5 million more dollars. Okay, it's pretty simple math. We're not doing that. We're talking about, we're suggesting that we're increasing the budget because the millage rate has been raised a little bit, and we're raising about $1.5 million more. But what that means is we have to reduce this budget by about $3.5 million more. That's what we're actually doing. That's how the shell game of using one-time revenues to fund recurring expenses, that's how it manifests itself. $5 million more we needed just to continue the budget this year. We're not doing that. So we're falling another roughly $3.5 million behind in this budget. And that's before you start taking into account that out of that same budget, we've got about 2,500 more people we have to provide services to, assuming a 1% population growth, and that's conservative. And on top of that, inflation, the information that's been put in front of us takes away another 3 to 5%, depending. You put all these things together, and it tells us that we need to be bringing in more revenue to keep this county functioning. And I'm getting a little tired of this crisis mentality. There's only a crisis because we created one. We can afford to take care of the county's infrastructure. We can afford to give our employees raises. The money has to come from the taxpayers, and we need to tell them that we need to take more money from them in order to do these things. Otherwise, we can keep hiding the problem and let the next commission deal with it. We need to raise taxes. It's expected that when the economy's good and things are going great and property values are rising, that the millage rates come down. And they did. The millage rate today is lower than the year that I took office in 2000. The millage rate today is lower than it was in 2000 when I took office. When the economy goes down, when things go bad, and property values go down, it's expected that the millage rate is going to increase. The budget can keep coming down, and it has. The budget has declined substantially in real dollar terms since the economic downturn. But the millage rate has to go up. It's just the way the math works. The millage rate going up is not a tax increase. We keep telling people that, and it keeps being reported that way, but the millage rate going up is not a tax increase. That's an intermediate number. So to say that we're at 8 point something now, and once we get to 10, there's nowhere further to go, well, that's true, but that's no reason not to increase the millage rate. We do still have substantial room with our millage rates to bring in substantial amount of money. A small increase in our millage rate this year would have given enough money for our employees to receive a raise. A small one. I think it's irresponsible to keep doing this. I think we ought to send out a new trim notice. We ought to do our best to make the case to the public why we need to come to them now and ask them for more money. Because if we had done it more incrementally and not made cuts as severe as we did over the last 3, 4, 5 years, we wouldn't need to ask for as much now. But that's the bottom line. The bills are coming due, and we have to pay them. Commissioner Baird, did you want to speak, Ms. Baker?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. But, what right now, what I'm concerned about is Robert's Rules of Order and how these meetings are structured. You went ahead and gave your little presentation, discussion, whatever, pitch, and then it's Commissioner Pinkison's turn, and then you decide to go ahead and respond to that when it was his discussion. I had some discussion points as
May
well.
I explain
Do you
that?
get to go ahead and respond after every single commissioner gives their points?
May I respond? This is a board workshop. The rules are always different in board workshop.
Right, but I never get a chance to go ahead and
You never get a chance to speak.
but I wait for my turn when it's the next person's turn. But you then come in and respond to each and every
Commissioner
person's
Baird,
discussions.
I'm not doing that. Okay, I think I've been pretty conservative.
You didn't have your light on.
I waited until I don't have a light. Okay, the chair does not have a light. This is the point I'm trying to make to you.
So you get to put yours on whenever. I had
The
mine on
chair
right after
always
his.
has to exercise discretion as to when they speak. If we're having a workshop about the budget where the 5 of us need to speak, ordinarily we'd be over there.
Right, and we don't, but we
Mr. Mayor,
don't.
So the way the meeting is handled in a situation like that is the chair should not be shut down and refrain from speaking when the board is trying to make a collective decision about something like the budget. It's a workshop. So I try to kind of balance how much everyone has spoken. Everyone got a chance to speak, sometimes more than once. You've spoken a number of times already this morning, and I haven't had a chance to say anything. So at some point, the chair gets to participate in the discussion. It's not open to the public. We're not making that kind of quasi-judicial decision where I need to just keep my mouth shut the entire time. This is a board workshop. I'm going to be an equal participant in the discussion. I don't think I've been unfair in allocating the time. You've spoken a number of times. I've spoken once, and I'm about to recognize you again. But I'm not going to remain silent until noon while this discussion continues. I have to vote on these things. I think it's important that I make my views available to the public. I need to tell them why I'm doing what I'm doing. So with that, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I agree. But there's a time when you go ahead and speak, and that's to create order. That's to go ahead and organize the group. But then there's times when there's a response. A response is different from taking charge of a discussion, of the order and all that. And that was, you had your chance to give your position. Then it's Commissioner Pinkison's turn, and then you had a rebuttal. That's not the time for the rebuttal. You write your notes down like that. It's my turn, and then if,
Tell
who
you what,
else's
Commissioner
turn?
Baird, I'm going to hold you to that standard from here on in, okay?
That's fine. You always
Okay.
do.
All right. No, I don't. We have a conversation all the time when we're in these kinds of workshops. And as chair, I try to allow the discussion to proceed, to let people have a back and forth when it's constructive.
It's usually between the two of you, but otherwise I hold my stance,
All right.
I hold my hand, and wait my turn.
Okay.
Well, apparently we're making some wrong decisions in the last 5 to 10 years when there's a $500 million backlog in roads. Infrastructure is falling apart. We've seen that. We're not even addressing half of the things. It's just absolutely outrageous that we have been doing this for the last 5, 10, maybe even longer than that, by sheer policy-making decisions and wrong decisions. And community decisions that right now we are continuously facing this drop in revenue. Opportunities are less. You look at the unemployment, you look at 1 in 4 children are hungry, which is what the newspaper has been saying. So apparently as a policy making body here, we need to start making some better decisions so that we don't have to keep running into this. The last 5 years have seen millage increases. Last year was the very first year that we didn't have an increase. It stayed the same. Prior to that, and it has gone up, and it is going up this year, just not as much as you would have liked it to go, or I think the two of you, you and Hutch, and it could have gone all the way up, and we wouldn't even come close to catching up to so many prior decisions that have been made wrong. And then, unfortunately, it's our working group of the county commission that has to pay that price, because that's one of those things you say, well, do they deserve a raise or not? Well, if we'd have been structured properly, and I do have some suggestions, I've been having some suggestions on how we can at least try and do it for this year, but the more revenue we can create, and not just in increasing taxes, I hear this revenue increase for tax bases. Why don't we go ahead and do revenue increase, because we've increased the base of the businesses, we've increased the wealth of the community. We keep going through this, and we have to start making these decisions. And fortunately, we are going to have some workshops to start working on our community to increase our tax base, to go ahead and start making it a more prosperous community versus just taxing us out of these situations. And that's one of the fundamental differences I have here, and we have to make these tough decisions, but at the same time not take them out of capital improvements, make sure we're funding the programs, we're putting our staff to work in community prosperity. That's one of the key focuses, as opposed to constantly backpedaling, and that's the difficult part right there. So those are just some differences that I have, and I have to pull those out because right now we're talking philosophically. So those are the main things, and it's harder to do because it's so much easier to increase the taxes, increase our revenue, and once we hit the top of the millage, well, guess what? There are more fees that we could add on. Look what the city's done. They have a fire assessment fee. They just went ahead and did that. Unfortunately, we don't have GRU to go ahead and tack on a whole bunch of other revenue streams that they can do, which people aren't that happy about either. But now we have to start recognizing what we can do. But again, it's the base that's even more important than trying to tax us out of all these situations and continuously making a burden on the citizens of Alachua County. So with that in mind, I just need to say that because we need to make better decisions as a board, and I'm hoping that we will. And I'm so glad that we do have that retreat in December. That's a step in the right direction. We have some other projects in mind. But for now, we're going to have to tighten our belt, and we are going to figure out a way to get those raises. But we have to figure it out in a way where we are going ahead and making sure that we are an efficient, lean machine, that we can go ahead and start making all the right priorities and setting ourselves in a course that we won't have these horrible deficits and being masqueraded through these shell games or adding more debt to our community. That's what we can't do. And I thank you, Ms. Baker, for looking at that, and I hope we can make some better decisions. Thank you.
Mr. Pinkerton.
I will talk after Commissioner Chestnut. He hadn't had the opportunity to talk yet.
Mr. Chestnut.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I guess my question would be is how do we move forward? We can't